Last year, I didn't make my best of list until I saw Nosferatu just to make sure it lived up to the hype, and boy am I glad I did. So for those who seriously haven't heard of the originals, let alone seen them, Nosferatu is the alter ego of Count Orlok, played by Bill Skarsgård, a vampire in 1830s Germany haunting a young lady named Ellen, played by Lily Rose Depp, her newly wedded husband Thomas, played by Nicholas Hoult, and anyone who dares interfere with his desire to make her his beloved bride. Robert Eggers is the rare filmmaker where every time he makes a new movie, I enjoy and am more impressed by it than the last. The Gothic visuals he creates in this are so gorgeous in their bleakness that whether or not you're a fan of the originals, you can succumb to the movie's grim atmosphere. I always love when a movie's lighting have half the characters' faces shrouded in shadows, or once they walk into the darkness, their bodies literally turn into silhouettes. And there are so many shots like that in this movie. Like The Northman, Eggers shoots as many scenes as possible in Spielberg Wonders, where the actors are staged in a way where the camera can pan from one character to another, almost simulating the effect of an edit and keeping the slow pace lively. And in scenes where Ellen is possessed or they encounter signs of Nosferatu like hordes of rats or creaking of stairs, just makes the blend of practical effects, prosthetic makeup, and seamless CG effects even more impressive. Probably the most disorienting aspect of the cinematography is how the movement of the camera literally zooms into darkness and enters a brand new location, or match cuts between characters in different locations, almost as if you're watching a nightmare on screen, especially when Nicholas Hoult encounters Orlok for the very first time. And the doors just magically open and close behind him. And each time it zooms into the dark, each transition becomes more and more jarring. But easily the scariest part of Nosferatu for me was the sound design and Robin Carolan's musical score. I have never heard of this composer before, but he has quite a career ahead of him because every piece of music is so ritualistic or spiritual in its vibe that it makes the simplest of atmospheric shots even more intense to look at. And whether their characters are inflicting pain and misery or are experiencing it themselves, Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, Bill Skarsgård, and Simon McBurney all give you a sense of dread and fear as you watch them. A lot of people are saying that Rose Depp is the main highlight of the movie, and it's totally easy to understand why. She has to portray someone who finds herself drawn and obsessed to a person she doesn't even know for reasons she can't understand, while still being deeply in love with her husband despite his ambitions intruding upon their relationship. Something Orlok can manipulate her with. And her performance, from the line reads to her body language, hit just the right amount of over-the-top melodrama every time she conveys the fear, depression, and possession that makes Nosferatu's control over her and everyone else in her life all the more threatening. Her performance alone makes Ellen the most intriguing character, but easily my favorite performances were of Bill Skarsgård, and especially Nicholas Hoult, who in my opinion gives some of, if not his best work. I think because these two interact face-to-face the most throughout the movie, and speaking of faces, that's what makes Hoult my favorite. His face every time he talks to Orlok and realizes the true evil he's capable of is downright terrifying. Every time something shitty happens to him, his reactions hit you hard. Even before and after his first encounter with Orlok. Whenever he speaks Orlok's name to the people of Transylvania, the extras, with only one or two lines, give this element of mystery as to what Nosferatu can do, who he's terrorized in the past, how has anyone lived to tell the tale. Now, as much as I love Bill Skarsgård's performance in this, Robert Eggers' revision of Orlok, as you may have heard, isn't going to work for everybody. It almost didn't work for me. For whatever reason, Eggers decided to redesign his face in a small but crucial way that, upon rewatch, does make him look grotesque and doesn't just mimic the original version, but I'd be lying if I said on first viewing the suspense didn't dissipate once I saw the weird giant fur coat and filthy looking mustache. Hey, I'm talking about Orlok here. Assholes. That makes him look like Gary Oldman's Dracula playing Jim Carrey's Robotnik. That being said, upon rewatch in the theater, the idea of a Gary Oldman Robotnik was still creepy and disgusting to look at on the big screen that, honestly, I stopped caring, and I think a lot of people who didn't like it the first time, they might actually reconsider it if they rewatch it themselves. And even when I had reservations about it the first time, I was still scared as hell watching him because Skarsgård's amazing voice work made my heart tense up, pound like hell. I was hyperventilating, shaking, and he even kept blinking constantly on the second viewing. Does anyone else do that when they watch scary movies? And based on the redesign of him, it goes without saying that the prosthetics, makeup, and voice work make him look and sound so much older than he actually is. I had to remind myself both times it even was Bill Skarsgård. And since a lot of reviews are probably going to leave his name out, I gotta give major props to Simon McBurney as the Renfield substitute who pulls the strings for Orlok. He's kind of an exposition vessel, but the batshit insane energy he brings to every scene, even when he's not scary, makes you totally invested in what he's saying. So on first viewing, the first half of the film that builds up Nosferatu's presence, and the climax where he comes face to face with Ellen and gives her a terrifying ultimatum, were the most heart-wrenching aspects of the film, but the middle portion just bogged me down in terms of pacing because I didn't care about the subplot featuring Aaron Taylor Johnson, Emma Corrin, and Ralph Ineson as they try to deduce what's actually haunting Ellen. Upon rewatch, the pacing of this movie flew by so quickly, and I grew to appreciate the performances more. Their arcs made a hell of a lot more sense, except Emma Corrin, who, aside from the character's last 10 minutes, really doesn't do anything. And I hated Aaron Taylor Johnson's character considerably less. His arc about how he hates being saddled with someone else's troubles and the effect it has on his family actually did make me care a little bit about him, but it doesn't change the fact that the character is still a generic skeptic who, in spite of the painfully obvious clues that something supernatural is going on, he still doesn't believe it, and it's clear as day that he's not in denial of the situation, he's just dumb. In fact, there are several laps of judgment that I realized on second viewing where a character goes, "Why didn't you share this information with me sooner?" I just sat there and went, because the movie would end a lot sooner. Yeah, as much as I love this movie, it's a great horror film. I think Robert Eggers relied a little too much on fairy tale logic towards the second half of the movie. Ralph Ineson plays a significantly more sympathetic character than he's used to, and I like the fact that he's a skeptic who's swayed into believing that the occult exists without much hesitation or really any resistance. That was actually really refreshing to see, especially with a story like this we've seen a million times. But to be honest, and I know a lot of people are going to hate me on this because they just disagree, and I would love to believe this as much as anyone else, but Willem Dafoe is not that great in this. If anything, he is severely underutilized as the Van Helsing substitute. And don't get me wrong, it's not because of him. He does a great job as always, and he does have standout moments, particularly the first time he encounters Ellen's possessions and has a great exorcism moment. But first off, and I can't believe I'm saying this about him in a Robert Eggers movie, he's not eccentric enough. He's supposed to be this alchemist who was laughed out of a medical school academy for his beliefs in the occult, but to be honest, he doesn't really act all that weird, aside from the fact that he has a pipe that looks like a saxophone and is almost as wide. Second, because he's the Van Helsing substitute, you expect him to come face to face with Nosferatu and have so many ingenious ideas on how to combat the vampire once and for all, but the two of them never come face to face. Hell, he doesn't even know how to defeat Orlok because, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but the legends and differences on how to actually defeat this monster are different in each region. Again, kind of relying on fairy tale logic a little too much there. And sadly, the resolution of his arc was beyond anticlimactic, not without its moments, because again, there's a great scene of him monologuing as he sets stuff ablaze, but his role in actually defeating Nosferatu, I don't think I'm giving that part away, was extremely small, and you could have done a little bit more. You could have done something physical. So yeah, even though the B-plot isn't as investing as the overall conflict, everything that works about Nosferatu, from the Gothic visuals, gorgeous cinematography, haunting musical score and sound design, the performances from Bill Skarsgård, Lily Rose Depp, Nicholas Hoult, who in my opinion are all Oscar-worthy, and Robert Eggers knocking it out of the park, giving in my opinion his best film, it's hard not to recommend. If they're still playing this in theaters while this is on streaming, do yourselves a favor and check it out. It's been out for so long that the second time I saw this, I was all alone in the theater, and it was fantastic. And with that, guys, thanks as always for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Nosferatu. Which one is your favorite? The original silent version, the Werner Herzog one, or this? Whatever they are, let me know in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe, check me out on Patreon, and I'll see you all in the next review. Take care.